You know what? I'll tell you what, I'll give you $3,000 for it.
I can't at that price.
If you change your mind, give me a call.
Thank you. It makes me disappointed. If I cannot get more than $5,000, it's going to stay in the family, and I'll hand it down to my son, and it can be something that he will have.
I don't think even if I offered you $4,000, you'd take it.
No, I'm gonna stick to the 10. Thank you
Thanks
so
for bringing
much.
it in.
Appreciate your time. I'm gonna keep the poster and put it back in storage and revisit it in another 5 years. Maybe I'll make some money on it instead of just break even.
After purchasing a Mad Max poster from an art gallery, this seller walks into the pawn shop to make some cool cash from pawning it. After all, she isn't a fan of the movie series, so it's not like the poster is special to her. She meets Chum at the store and makes her sale proposal. What does Chum think about this poster?
This is pretty cool. From what I understand, Mel Gibson didn't even go in to audition for this part. He went to go take his roommate in. And I guess he had been in a fight recently, so he was bruised up and scuffed up, and the producers liked his look, so they asked him to audition for the movie. What are you looking to do with it?
So I'd like to sell it to you today.
This is very bland. Should be much more personal. Oh Cat, this poster is cool and all, but $10,000, that's insane. Even I am curious about that too. Chum did not know much about the Mad Max poster, so his best bet was to call in Dave, an expert on items like that, for help. Let's see how that goes.
Okay, what have we got here? Oh, Mad Max.
You a fan of Mad Max?
I am a fan of Mad Max.
So from what I understand, this movie wasn't supposed to be as big as it was. And
Correct. It became more and more popular as, it became a wider and wider release. They said, all right, we just need to print more posters.
But is it the original rare orange Mad Max poster? Well, I don't know. However, you and I are about to find out.
Well, it was folded as issued. As you can see, it's got the typical creases, which is a good sign. It's got the MAPS logo, which this is from Australia. Let's measure this to see. An Australian one sheet should measure right around 27 inches by 40 inches.
Damn. The seller was not too pleased to hear that price. She bought this thing at an auction sale for $10,000. This means she lost at the auction sale and might be losing here too. It's sad, but I'm sure Chum wouldn't buy that thing for $10,000, especially if he doesn't want to receive Rick's wrath. So, what's going to happen now?
Well, he said it sold for $4,000 at an auction. I really like it. I could offer you $3,000 for it.
$3,000.
Yeah, that's really kind of where I'm at. I don't have a lot more room because I have to go by what it last sold for.
Right, so orange isn't the new black after all?
Next up, we have a 1967 Fiat 500 car, a vehicle that looks like it can only occupy a dwarf or a 10-year-old. Where on earth did Annalise find such a tiny car? Let's hear from the horse's mouth.
T-cars, they're classic cars, and he bought this from somebody in Massachusetts who had imported it from Italy.
Okay, Fiat, they've got a really interesting story with these. This Fiat is basically the Ford of Italy. Now, the company's so huge that they own Chrysler now.
Oh wow, who would have thought this little car and the luxurious Chrysler were made by the same manufacturers? Anyway, Corey is interested in the car's features. What benefit can this outdated vehicle bring to its users? Well, only Annalisa has the answer to that.
I know it has 2 cylinders.
So more than likely around 500 cc's. That's what they put in dirt bikes.
No different than dirt bikes.
I'm almost afraid to touch anything because I might break it. It seems so tiny and fragile.
My husband, he drove it up to 6 years ago.
Yep, I agree. Corey seems somewhat satisfied with the exterior of the Fiat. It looks neat and barely has a scratch. The next stage is to find out how much Annalise wants to sell it.
How much were you looking to get out of it?
I think $13,000.
Okay. Well, I gotta tell you, it's not every day I get one of these thrown in my lap. So do you mind if I go make a few phone calls and see if I can get a buddy down here?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I know a lot more about it than me.
We'll see about that. After a short while, Corey returns with an expert, Bill, to examine the car more closely. Let's see how that goes.
That's quite a gem you got here. The old Fiat 500, huh? These were pretty cool cars, man. They made these from 1957 to 1975. The first models these actually came out didn't even have roll-down windows. When you're talking no frills, This is it. Italy wasn't really known on the automotive forefront at this time.
Yikes, the little Fiat won't even start. However, it isn't something that can't be fixed. Speaking of fixed, Bill, the expert, pointed out that the vehicle might need a lot of other tweaks and repairs. Aside from that, what does Bill think the broken down Fiat is worth?
An average price for one of these, they're gonna go anywhere from between $6,000 to about $12,000. And then it all comes down to your basic condition. So this particular car, in this condition, I'd give you about $6,000 for it.
From $13,000 to $6,000? That's a huge price difference. How much will Corey offer Annalisa for this vehicle? Will he even give her an offer at all? Let's find out.
So I know you were looking for $13,000, and I'm a little scared of it, to be honest with you, because even if I were to give you $6,000 for it, I don't want to be stuck putting another $5,000, $8,000 into this thing. I'm afraid with this, I'm just going to get into a little bit more of a project that I'm willing to do. I'm just going to have to pass on it.
Okay.
Samantha brings an autographed Reservoir Dogs poster into the pawn shop where she meets Chumley. This one's interesting. What does Samantha hope to achieve from selling this poster that obviously isn't special to her?
I'm gonna use that money just to go somewhere. I don't know, but out of Vegas.
Well, it's pretty cool. Where'd you get this?
After I had a few roommates in college, we all moved and parted ways, and none of my roommates ever claimed it, so now I'm looking to make space in my closet.
Well, what do you know about the Reservoir Dogs?
Not much, actually. That's why I brought it here.
Wow, we have a Quentin Tarantino fan here, guys. Although he may be ashamed to say it all, Chum knows some of the movie star's quote. However, let's see what more he says about this Tarantino guy.
He's one of the biggest directors of all time. And if these autographs are real, die-hard fans are gonna love this poster. How much are you looking for?
I'm no expert, but I was thinking 2,000.
2,000.
Yes.
I don't want to pay you 2,000 for this.
Come on.
Chum never fails to crack his customers up. At this point, he has doubts about the poster and isn't sure about purchasing it from Samantha at the price she stated. So, Chum seeks the help of an expert, Steve, on the signatures. Now, I'm curious to see how that goes.
I'm sure you're gonna be excited to see this.
Honestly, I am, because Reservoir Dogs is literally one of the greatest independent films ever made. And it wasn't a huge hit, but it became a huge cult hit.
Yeah.
Guys that are in here that don't like really signing autographs. Harvey Keitel's one of them. He's just not a big fan of signing autographs for people. So if it's real.
So far, so good. The next thing on the agenda is determining whether the autographs are real or forged.
The first one I do want to take a look at is Tim Roth. And you look at the rushed nature of the signature. He just likes to kind of get through it, get finished with it, and he's done. Harvey Keitel's the next one. And you could take a look here. This is his first name, second name.
Okay, so Samantha is all in the clear. The autographs on the posters have been proven to be real, but what about the poster's actual worth? Is it worth the $2,000 she asked for?
This is a great piece of cinematic history. I'd put this value of this poster right around $2,200.
That's awesome.
All right, well.
Got everything you need to know. Good to see you.
Hey, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, sure. Good luck.
It is now up to Samantha and Chum to strike a deal. Now that she knows the real worth of the autographed poster, how much do you think Samantha would charge for it? In fact, how much is Chum willing to pay for it? Let's see how the bargaining goes.
I'm looking more like $1,000 because I'm gonna have to frame it and mat it, sell it, and as my boss would say, that's not cheap to do.
Yeah, but he just told you how rare it is, and I'm just gonna have to stick closer to 2,000.
Is 1,200 close, 2,000?
No, maybe 19?
It's not every day that you get to see a Gibson guitar, but the pawn shop was lucky to have one in their store in this episode. This guitar is so rare, even Rick never expected it when Dickie brought it in.
Where did you get this?
Well, I can't really tell you. It'd be one of my trade secrets, but I found it at a pawn shop.
Okay. Here in town?
Maybe. Maybe. I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
This guitar is very old. It's made out of metal, and it says Gibson on the headstock, and I've never seen one like that before.
And so, the guitar examination began. Rick has the knowledge of almost all the items in the world, especially if it's vintage, like a Gibson. Despite the fact that this Gibson guitar in particular seemed a little foreign to him, he still had something historical to say about it.
This is a Gibson. It's got to be 30s. This is really early electric guitar stuff.
I'm sure this was fairly new technology at the time, too.
Well, it was. They were trying to market this new idea of an electric guitar. And it sounded a little weird, but if you played it well, it sounded pretty cool.
That's where the problem lies. Even the seller isn't too sure about the guitar being a Gibson. However, he believes that it'll probably be an old Gibson-related guitar. Meanwhile, Rick asked what Dickie would want to sell the guitar for, and here's what he had to say.
Did a lot of research online, and from what I think would be a fair price would be 10 grand.
Maybe if it's a Gibson, I don't know. I'm just sort of baffled by it. Give me a few minutes, I'm gonna call a buddy down here. I'll have him take a look at it.
Okay.
And if it's real,
After a while, Jesse, Rick's guitar guy, comes to the rescue. Rick explains to him that his confusion lies in the Gibson logo written on the guitar. The logo isn't the same regular Gibson logo he's used to, so he fears that this might be a fake. What does Jesse have to contribute to this situation? Let's find out.
This is early on in the technology of pickups. This is, 1936. Guitar at this time was coming a little bit more into the forefront. They needed to get it up and loud over a big band.
Gibson never made anything this ugly.
Well,
you gotta give me that, it's ugly.
Yeah.
Okay, but Rick wasn't satisfied yet. Good thing Jesse was patient enough to hear him out and explain things properly.
This is actually a Gibson. Wow, really early serial number. It's their first model. It's a piece of history for sure. This is Gibson's first electric guitar.
So what's it worth?
It's actually extremely rare.
Right. Dickie was shocked to hear the price of the guitar. Even I am too. I mean, rare items are usually worth a lot of money. So, it's shocking that this isn't worth as much as Dickie's $10,000 proposal. Moving on, let's see if Rick will strike a bargain with Dickie.
$4,500?
Realistically, you heard what he said.
Right.
Okay. I will give you $2,000 for it. It's really cool, but it's still not an easy sell. You know, it's a lap steel and it's sort of weird, so.
It's not a Les Paul, I know that. 3,800?
I'll go 22.
25, I'll walk out, you'll never see me again.
All right, 2,500, man.
All right, cool beans.
Meet you right over there.
All right, thanks.
We have seen people come to the pawn shop to sell a coin or two, but this guy here wants to sell a whole set of Oregon Trail commemorative coins to Rick. But that's not all. He also has a letter that might be Ezra Meeker's. What does Rick think about all of this?
He was the guy who got him to make the coin, right?
He was.
It's really a really cool coin because a lot of people think it's the prettiest coin we ever did. And through the 1920s, we made some incredible coins in this country. And now there's just a bunch of old dead guys on them.
Well, it'll be sad to see his hopes dashed if he doesn't end up selling his items. Anyway, Rick delves into the brief history of the coins.
They really hit the line on this. It's a beautiful coin. It's got an American Indian on one side and the wagon in the back going across the United States.
Pretty much, as Meeker did.
What are these up here?
The centerpiece of this presentation is a letter from the old pioneer Ezra Meeker to the members of the American Numismatic Association.
That's enough on the history of Ezra Meeker and his coins. I'm curious about how the bargaining goes between these men, especially given the amount Will wants for the items.
$5,000 for the coins and $5,000 for the ephemera.
Any reason you never got these graded, or?
No, not particularly.
Here's my concern. I can grade them or you can grade them, and it really means nothing unless you have like NGC or some other grading companies grade them.
Right? So, good old Dave, another coin connoisseur like Rick, was called in to help in this situation. Let's see how that goes.
The Ezra Meeker letter, it was dated 1928, so I'm sure there's a collectible thing there going on. But the big thing is he has the complete set of the Oregon Trail.
Okay.
But they're not graded, so basically I called you up to ask what you think.
Ezra Meeker was the quintessential pioneer. In the 1850s, he brought his family by ox cart along the Oregon Trail all the way to Oregon.
Here we go again with the history. I'm curious to know what the items are worth, and if Will would make enough money for his retirement property.
Like 3 or 4.
So what do you think they're worth?
What's really strange about it, it is probably 10,000 times rarer than some of these coins. But it's principally of interest to members of the association. The ones I've seen sell in the past tend to bring less than $400.
Damn, you mean such memorabilia is worth only $2,400? I felt Will's disappointment immediately when the worth of the letters was mentioned. What's going to happen now?
This right here, on the other hand, I'll give you $2,000 for the coins.
You know, the wholesale bid for these things in MS63, which there's no argument that they're at least that, it's 3,700 something. How about 3,700?
There's no money for me to be made that way. I mean, it's going to cost me $500 to get these things graded. I mean, I'll go 21.
My absolute rock bottom's 3,300.
No.
Now, this guy didn't have anything else to pawn except some dice that actually started the Revolutionary War. Can you imagine that? Rick claims that the dice have been stacked away in the museum and haven't been seen since then. He goes on to provide more insight about the period these dice were locked up.
A really interesting time period. It would have been really cool to live back then because it was an intellectual age. There was a lot of arguments all night long in bars where they would drink, play dice, and talk politics.
I got these dice that were in a whole bunch of items that were in my garage.
Well, it looks like Alan is enjoying Rick's story. This gives Rick the opportunity to continue with his knowledge of the dice.
The English Parliament enacted the Stamp Act of 1765 to help pay off all the debts that were incurred during the French and Indian Wars. The problem is, if you tax something to death, they'll figure out a way around the system. Now, you see how these are stamped right here? Those are big and bold and 100%.
I definitely did not see that coming. Meanwhile, Rick is interested in knowing how much Alan is willing to sell his dice. Let's see what his response is.
Can I give you $250 for them? I mean, it's right around what they're worth. Because like I said, they're rare, but they're not that rare because everyone played dice.
How about $275?
You know what? They're really cool. I'll give you $275.
Okay.
Okay, meet you right up front here.
With the $275 I got today, I'll probably just take my friend to a really nice dinner.
Here's another coin collector, Julie. However, she doesn't have enough knowledge about her coin, making her much less of a collector. Anyway, Chumlee is at the shop examining the coin, but as always, this guy cracks a joke about it.
Kind of looks like Caesar crossed with Medusa and on a bad hair day.
I was at an estate sale and I found the coin mixed in with a bunch of other items, and I've had it now for about 3 months, and it's really hard to find out how much coins are worth.
Well, Rick is glad that he was present for this sale because Chum clearly didn't know what the coin was. Since Rick knows how important the coin is to collectors, he is immediately interested and asks Julie how much she is willing to sell it for.
Maybe 15?
1,500?
No.
15,000?
Yes.
This is the problem with old coins like this. They're counterfeited all the time, but then again, there's also the possibility it's real. I need someone to look at it. If you don't mind hanging out for a little bit, let me get someone down here who knows all about this. Give me 5 minutes, okay?
Thank you.
As the coin guy, Rick calls Dave for some help. Let's see what Dave has to say about the coin.
It says King Mithridates Eupatros, which is descended of a noble father.
Okay.
He was descended on his mother's side from Greek kings like Alexander, and on his father's side from Persian kings. So he literally, on one side, he has the Greek.
Typical Rick. Moving on, Dave continues his examination on the coin, and here's the result.
Yeah, this is the real deal.
How much is something like that valued at?
Well, these are in real demand from collectors. It's probably 10,000 plus. Yeah.
Pretty nice coin there.
It's a beautiful coin.
Well, thanks, Dave. I appreciate it,
no
man.
problem. Thank you.
All right.
Best of luck. And congratulations.
Thank you.
But would Rick agree to that amount? Let's find out.
There's a million expenses involved in selling it, and I gotta make something.
What are you thinking?
More like 5.
5?
Okay.
You got to be able to do better than that.
No, but I have to get it sent off. I have to get it encapsulated and graded.
How about 7?
You know, I don't mean to beat you up here. I really don't. I'd give you like 5,500 for it. It's a tough sell. It really is. Some things like this can sit around here for years.
Vintage things are a constant at the pawn shop. Corey walks in with the Beverly Hillbillies toy, one that was famous in the 1960s. This immediately intrigues Rick.
Beverly Hillbillies car.
Yes.
Includes Jeff, Jethro, Ellie Mae, Granny, and Duke. Can we take all this out?
Yeah, we can take it out.
All right. Because Jethro was driving. They don't fit real well. Then Granny sat in the chair, and then Ellie Mae was right in front. There we go.
He has a point there. Do you even know anything about the Beverly Hillbillies? Anyway, Rick tests the toy and asks how much Corey wants for it. Here's what Corey's response was.
You know there's some damage to it. And we got some damage here, and we got some damage there. Did it have damage?
Had some damage. I think mine was probably in a little better condition than that one.
I'll give you $400 for it.
Can you do a little better than 400?
I'll go 4 1/4.
About 6.
No, it's in pretty decent shape for 1963, and you do have the box.
About 5.
Now, this next item is quite unusual. Even Rick was shocked to see it. Greg comes into the shop carrying a padlock that was used many years ago. It turned out that it's something the pawn shop has been receiving for years now.
A lot of these come in from India recently, past like 20 years. I mean, the Chinese made them, the Romans made them. It's not reproductions, it's actually old stuff. The thing is, they were still making these 100 years ago. It's one of those things that really didn't change the design a lot because it worked, and this probably held a big giant gate closed.
Rick asks Greg how much he wants to sell it, and here is what his response was.
Well, you know, one thing that has been consistent throughout the ages, there's always been thieves, okay? And so there's always been padlocks, and there's just gazillions of them out there. I mean, this sounds really cheap, but I'll give you $50.
How about 150?
I'll give you $60 for it. There's nothing on it that really makes it really neat, and therefore it's gonna be difficult to sell.
75?
$70.
Jody has a Victorian-era snuff box and matches she wants to pawn at the shop. She approaches Chumlee and he examines the items.
And these are cameo matches that are Victorian era also, I believe.
You mind if I take a look at it?
Yeah, sure.
Snuff in general has just always been a really weird thing to me. Can't imagine wanting to sniff tobacco in my nose.
At first glance, it's clear that Chum is interested in both vintage items. He asks Jody how much she's looking to make from selling them, and her immediate response was shocking. Here, take a look.
Cool. Definitely kind of an interesting little matchbox. So what are you looking to do with it?
I'd sell it.
All right. Any idea of what you're looking to
gonna get out of it?
So I'm a virgin. I've never pawned anything before.
Okay.
So be gentle with me. I was thinking maybe 175. I don't know what they're worth.
Wow. It turned out that her eagerness to sell was for nothing. Both the snuff box and the matches were a complete fake, and we both know how that goes once it's been asserted that an item isn't what it was thought to be. If you don't know, watch this.
Victorian era also, they didn't have plastic. That being said, I couldn't really do anything with it.
Well, maybe I'll take up snuff again. Thanks for your time.
Anyways,
Rick is presented with one of the holy grails of Roman coins, Ides of March denarius coin. The owner, John, hopes to sell so he can purchase a few other coins from an auction. Rick immediately recognizes the coin, and of course, was excited to delve into the coin's story.
Pretty cool. That says Ides of March. And that whole line became famous because of the Shakespearean play where Julius Caesar goes and sees a soothsayer and he goes, beware the Ides of March. Right. So where did you get this?
I bought this from a dealer in California, probably in the mid-'80s.
It's just such amazing history. I mean, we still talk about it today.
Interesting. However, Rick was not yet done with his story. He explains that Brutus made the coin specially to celebrate him killing Julius Caesar, among other things too.
But what I think's interesting too, if you look at the other side, he put his portrait on it. And this was one of the things that Julius Caesar got criticized for, was putting his portrait on a coin while he was living.
It's to this day in politics, you know, you'll have a guy running for office criticizing everything the other guy's doing, and the second he gets in office, he starts doing that.
What a tragic story. Upon realizing that the coin looks good, Rick asks John how much he is willing to sell the great coin. Here's how that went down.
$150,000.
Okay, I know they're worth a ridiculous amount of money, but let me call a friend of mine and take a look at it. And it's a lot of money, and I want his opinion on whether it's real or not. It's not that I don't trust you, it's just I don't trust anybody. And we'll see if we can make a deal.
Sounds great.
After a short while, Dave, the king of coins, as we all know him, rushes down to the pawn shop to take a look at this rare coin. And boy, does he have a lot to say about this coin.
With the collapse of the Republic and the paving of the way for the Empire, which literally changed history, it all boils down to this coin. This is Brutus celebrating the fact that he murdered Julius Caesar on the Ides of March.
Okay, so the big question, what do you think it's worth?
This one has the advantage.
Okay, the coin is indeed authentic. The next thing on the agenda is to find out how much the coin is worth. Let's see what Dave has Rowe say about that.
Personally, I think a collector would be very happy to pay about $125,000 for the coin. But if a bunch of people showed up at the auction, it could bring 140, 150 grand.
Okay. Thanks, Ben.
Best of luck.
Did anyone see the look of excitement on the seller's face? He was pleased to hear Dave's opinion on the coin's worth. So what's it going to be now? Would Rick agree to pay such a hefty amount for this coin? Let's find out.
I agree with Dave. It's an incredible coin. It's like uber cool. And I would give you $100,000 for it.
I could come down maybe to 140.
This is the way I look at it. I have to send it off, I have to encapsulate it, and this whole process takes like a year. If I give you $110,000,
we have seen vintage items ranging from coins to guitars and padlocks. This time, Kristen brings an Alamo Scouts military patch from World War II. That's incredible, don't you think so? Well, Rick agrees with me.
Where in the world did you get this?
So my grandfather was actually an Alamo Scouts, and this has been handed down to me from my father.
That is really neat. I know that patch is one of the holy grails of like World War II patches.
Oh yeah.
Nice. To prove that the patch she brought is not a fake, Kristen presents her grandfather's training certificate from the Alamo Scouts Training Center. She also proceeds to tell a short story on the Alamo Scouts.
Alamo Scouts were a very elite unit that did long-range reconnaissance. They also were considered bodyguards for General Kruger.
I know that you had to volunteer for this. My understanding was the training was absolutely insane.
Yes.
You know, it was just massively brutal.
Right. Kristen tells Rick that she would like to sell the patch for $6,500. While Rick seems interested, he has to vet the patch first. So he calls in his patch expert, MHP. Let's see what the expert has to say.
The Alamo Scouts patch and
Very nice.
His graduation certificate.
Wow, that's interesting.
Okay, so now this was like a secret organization, but not secret?
It was, yeah. The fellow who ran the 6th Army.
There we have it. Mr. Sicipio was a member of the Alamo Scouts. The expert takes a closer look to confirm the patch's authenticity.
Manufacturing looks right to me. You know, the construction looks right. Because of the paperwork, because of the look, the construction, I'm going with 80% that this is, in fact, an original Alamo Scouts patch.
Confirmed. So, will Rick and Chatiston strike a deal on this legendary patch? Let's find out.
So, What's your best price on this?
6,000.
Okay. I'm thinking more like 2,500. You know, when I called him, I checked online. Last one I saw sold for $4,200.